Welcome to this presentation on 7 levers, an entrepreneurial experience workshop. We'll run through this session talking about introductions, the people behind the program, what work integrated learning is all about and how this program fits that session, that area. We'll describe in detail the Business Development Clinic, which is the program that we deliver for students. We'll talk about working with live case studies, and there are some interesting issues that arise with that. Cover off on the assessment that we use with students in this program. We'll get into some detail on the 7 levers framework, which we work through with the students and use as the basis of their work for this program. Then we talk about the math of how that works and the associated skills that we run through with the students and focus on them building. And then I'll wrap it up with a conclusion. My name's Wade Halvorson. I'm the Director of SMEs and Entrepreneurship at Deakin University in Melbourne, Australia. I'm part of the WIL team, the Work Integrated Learning team. And for my sins, I have a background as an entrepreneur, as a marketing professional before joining academia. I work together with Pete Williams. You can see Pete there with his best-selling book, award-winning book, Cadence. Pete's a professor of practice at Deakin University Business School, and we find working together, we're able to bring the best of the academic world together with the practitioner's experience to deliver that experience as close as possible to reality for the students. What is work integrated learning? Now, most professionals understand that work integrated learning is about developing students' employability through experiences in professional environments, work on the kinds of tasks that are typically assigned to graduates. Now, it involves placements, internships, domestic and international experiences, and now, especially after COVID, we can deliver these experiences both in the classroom, face-to-face, and in the online environment. And we'll talk a little bit more about how we've developed a technique for working with a constant flow of live case studies. Before we start, I'd like to just run a quick game. You can see these numbers appearing in front of the screen. What I'd like you to do, and I'll start the timer in a second, I'll give you 30 seconds. I'd like each of you to start with the number 1 in the top left-hand corner and find each of the numbers in sequence after that. You can see the number 2 kind of just off centre toward the top. When I start the timer, I'd like you to find each of those numbers in sequence and count as high as you can through that sequence until we stop the clock at 30 seconds. So, ready to go? The clock is starting now. So keep going, find each of the numbers in sequence. We find some of the students don't even make it to double figures, some of the students make it to fairly high numbers. So just see how you go, finding each of those numbers sequentially. Okay, we've come to the end of the time there. What I'd like you to do is to hang on to that number. How far did you get? Hang on to that number and I'll come back to that a little later in the presentation. What is the Business Development Clinic? The Business Development Clinic is an experiential WIL unit that we run at Deakin Business School, Deakin University Business School in Melbourne, Australia. We basically are looking at developing some strategic planning for revenue and profit optimization. And we do that with student consultancy teams. So students enroll in the unit. They join together with other students in groups with a maximum of 6. We prefer around about 4. They work together with SMEs, startups, and they work on development strategies. And we'll go into some detail on how we deliver that in a minute. The students in this unit, in this program, engage in a combination of program-tailored content, hands-on project work, client meetings, team meetings, and mentor sessions. So the Business Development Clinic has been run for the last 5 years at Deakin Business School. So we've worked with around about 120 businesses and around about 600 students have gone through the program in that time. What I'd like to have a look at on this slide is look at the eyes of these children. If you look at them, arms outstretched, they're not sitting in a suitcase pretending anything. They're actually out there flying. Now this is what we look to find in our students in the program. We want to open up their imaginations. We want to disinhibit them, allow them to see what's possible. And we must be doing the right thing, because this is typically the kind of feedback we get from students who undertake the program. So we have a lot of feedback from students, and this is typical of the feedback that we get, evaluations done every semester. We work together with companies. This particular one you can see actually produces recyclable, compostable bags for picking up pet dog litter. So OCRAP is the name of the company, and this is what this owner of a startup gave us feedback on his experience with our program with our students. So you can see OCRAP, the founder Henry Reith, has found the framework that we use in the business development clinic to be very helpful on an ongoing basis as his business grows. So what are the assessments that we use in this program for the students? Obviously they write a report, they do a presentation to the client. We've developed a contribution diary as a method to extract from students a realistic assessment of what they've actually done in the teamwork, in the class sessions, to contribute to the learning for their colleagues, for their peers, and for the overall experience of the class. So peer-to-peer assessments, we've found students don't want to be critical of other students. It could be the opposite, it could be personality conflict. It's a very inexact way of determining what a student has actually done to contribute during the experience, during the classes and during their teamwork. So what we've discovered is we found students are actually, on the whole, fairly honest about what they do, how far they go and what they've actually done. So with the contribution diary, we have a series of questions that focus in on specific elements. For example, what concept did you share with the other members of your team in this meeting that helped advance the progress of your project? And there's a sequence of 10 questions that we use there, and we're finding terrific feedback on getting to understand each student's commitment to their contribution. And then finally, the fourth one is the skill development, self-reflection. And in that report, students talk about the skills that they've developed in detail. They reflect on their experience, their learning experience, what they take out of that, and how to actually translate that into kind of transferable skills described in their resumes when they're looking for jobs, looking for work. So coming back to those numbers, what I'd like you to do is remember that experience you had finding each of those numbers. The number 1 in the top left corner, the number 2 across to the right, number 3 down the bottom left. I mean, you really had to go through a jumble of different elements. So each of you arrived at a figure that you reached with that jumble of numbers. What I'd like to talk about now is I'd like you to imagine we put in some structure. So we divide it into quadrants. So we have a framework to start to approach the finding of those numbers and the counting up of the numbers. So imagine next we have a methodology where we take you from the sector on the top left, from 1 to 2 on the top right segment. We go down to the bottom left to find the next number, and then across to the 4th segment there on the bottom right to find the next number, and so on. And the sequence is repeated. So we've got the framework, you know the methodology. What I'd like you to do now, and I'll give you another 30 seconds, is start again from the number 1, finding those numbers in sequence, and see how far you get this time. 30 seconds starting now. So do you find yourself working a little bit more quickly now, given that framework and the methodology? So putting together a structure to approach that exercise has added to your effectiveness, I suppose. But let's have a look. End of the time frame. How far did you get this time? Did you reach more numbers? Did you count up to a higher level? What was the experience like using the framework and the methodology? And how fast did you move being able to repeat that cycle? So what we've done is we've created the 7 levers framework, authored by Pete Williams and described in his business award-winning business book, Cadence. Free copies are available if you'd like to send me an email. The 7 levers framework, Pete decided to have a look at what it takes to sell and to make a profit. So the first step really is getting people to notice your business. Once you've got people noticing your business, you really want them to start to connect with you, to interact with you. And you want those people then to become customers. You want them to buy from your business. You want them to buy product or service. And once they've done that, you want them really to buy the most expensive item possible. We're being very straightforward here in the language. Step 5, getting those people that have become customers to buy as many items as possible. Do you want fries with your hamburger, for example, is the typical quotation to illustrate that one. Step 6 is about getting them to come back and to buy from you again, so becoming regular customers. And then the 7th step is to keep the most amount of money in your pocket after paying all your expenses. So with those 7 steps identified, Pete came up with a visualization in a simple 1-image format of each of those elements or each of those 7 levers. So a business concentrating on each of those levers can become far more effective at building revenue, building profit, than by tackling ad hoc elements in their business. So we move from the suspect, the person that we haven't found yet. We bring them in, they become a prospect and look at the product. We convert them to being a customer, we sell them an item. Then we look at the average items per sale. How many items do we sell to a customer when we have them with us? And what's the average item price of that? And how many transactions are we able to generate? And then finally, the margins and expenses. So looking at this image with the 7 levers, we're looking for students to analyse the business in these terms. And what better way to do that than to use a canvas, well-renowned for use in this startup, lean startup methodology and in organisations developing their business plans. So we've developed Pete developed a similar framework, the 7 levers framework, that kind of builds on the work done in the business model canvas. So here in one view are each of those 7 areas that a business needs to concentrate on building to focus on increasing their profitability, to increase their revenue, and to be effective in their daily decision making. So what I'd like to do now is just to introduce Pete Williams. Good on you, Pete. Have a 3-minute introduction to how the 7 levers framework works, and we'll come back at the end of your speech, at the end of your presentation.
Hey everybody, Pete Williams here, and thank you so much for having me virtually. Wade, you're doing a fantastic job, I hope. This has been pre-recorded, but good job so far, mate. Anyway, I'm here just to share with you the model that we actually use inside our business development clinics here at Deakin. It's a model that makes understanding their business, doing some strategic planning, and a bit of a health check super understandable for our business clients, but also really easy for our students to grasp, learn, and implement. So what you now see on the screen is a business. It's a rectangle, but it is a hairdresser. It is an accounting firm. It is a wholesale manufacturer. Whatever the business is, we represent that as the starting point in our framework or canvas. Now, for any business, whether you are a for-profit or even a non-profit, at the end of the day, most business owners are here to make money. So let's start and put in the bottom line first to represent what drives the purpose of what we're doing. Then the question becomes, what does drive that bottom line in a business? And there's really 3 factors that drive that. You have the sales funnel, you have the front end revenue, and you have the back-end revenue. Now we try and go one layer deeper in this initial model. And there's a lot of depth in here that we don't have time to go through today, of course. But if you look at the sales funnel, that is driven or broken up by three components. You have the suspects. These are the people that you suspect might be potential customers for your business. That then follows into prospects. These are the group of people, the subset, that have put up their hand, they've tried on the dress, they've taken the free trial, they've gone for the test drive of your car, whatever it might be, that is a micro commitment that gets them closer to being a customer. Every business has that micro commitment step, whether they realize it or not. And that's what defines a prospect. From there, obviously, you're trying to get as many of those prospects to become customers and clients and convert into your business. The front-end revenue is also broken up by two factors. The first thing we've got is average item price. What is the average price of the goods or services or products that you sell to your customers? And then on average, how many products are they buying each transaction? We all know the overused analogy that is from McDonald's. Would you like fries with that? That's what this box represents or is asking. How are you getting people to buy the fries with the hamburger? Then you've got your back-end revenue. How often are people coming back and transacting from you again? And what are you doing to drive that? And all this sits on top of our margins or our expenses. So this model allows a business, through our consulting clients, the students, to actually understand what are the factors that drive the revenue and the profit through our client's business. We can use this canvas or this tool to obviously understand how they define each of these areas, because a suspect for a hairdresser is going to be very, very different to a suspect for a lawn mowing business, or as I said before, an accounting firm or an e-commerce store, whatever it might be. We can also measure how many suspects do we actually have in this business over a particular period of time. How many prospects? What's our transactions per customer measure? We can use it in that way as well. And then finally, as Wade will surely talk about, is the power of 10% wins and the impact that'll happen to the profit of a business if we increase each of these levers or each of these areas by just 10%. So with that, I'll pass back to Wade, let him fill in the gaps that I've missed, or continue on the presentation. Again, thanks for having us today.
Thanks, Pete. So there you have it, the 7 levers canvas, laid out, easy to use, visible in one image, the sort of thing that a business can have pinned up in their office, if you like, to allow them to focus on each of those key areas that they need to be working on. And we can use that as the initial health check, where our students go in and work with an organisation to determine how each of those stages are undertaken in their business, and then to come back once they've made their adjustments and amendments to propose how they're going to build and make those 10% increases in each of those areas. Pete mentioned the math behind this, and we talked about that at the earlier stage. So what we'd like to do is just quickly run you through an example here of an organisation that has, at the point at which the students do their health check, they've discovered that there's about 17,000 suspects for this company's or this organisation's business. So perhaps 5% of those may be turned into prospects, and then converted, say 45% of that 5% converted into making a sale and becoming a customer. The average item price for the organisation, with our analysis, has determined it's around $90 for this example. Items for sale, per sale, we're on average, customers are going with 1.2 items when they make a purchase. Some may be buying 3, some may be buying 1. For this example, the average is 1.2. So how many transactions do we make per customer? We're saying for this example, 1. And the profit margin, with a little bit of investigation, the students can estimate a profit margin together with the owner of the business. So let's see how that pans out. With 17,000 suspects, 5% of that works out at 850 prospects. 45% of those prospects would mean generating 382 customers. The gross revenue from that would come to 41,310, and with the 40% profit margin, the organisation would, at the bottom line, be taking about $16,500 in profit. Now, these are numbers just designed to demonstrate how the math behind the 7 levers framework works. So if we go to the point at which we've undertaken and achieved the 10% wins in each of those 7 areas, a simple 10% increase in suspects would lift that to 18,700. Obviously 10% of 5 is 5.5%. The number of conversions, if we increase that from 45% by 10%, we're just under 50% conversion rate. So the average price lifted by 10% makes that $99. And the number of items per sale increased by 10% means a 1.32 items on average sold per customer. So the transactions per customer lifted to 1.1 and the profit lifted to 44%. So each of the critical 7 stages, if we can lift them by 10%, we'd be able to generate double profit, double the amount of profit. Now this is a forecast, it's an example of how this could work, and these numbers strictly work off each of the 7 areas being increased by 10. But we can see there that those small wins can make a serious contribution to a significant profit increase. So the sorts of things we teach the students in addition to the framework include understanding themselves, the type of personalities that they are, and we use these online tools to do that. The students, once they understand themselves and the type of personality they are, work together to determine the roles that they will play within the team that they'll work with. So we've found far less conflict, far more cooperation using this methodology. So the students understand themselves better, they work together in the team, and each of the key elements, for example, the presenter at the end of the program is up to one of the students, or multiples if they prefer, but the one that does it the best is the one that is allocated that job. And of course the consultancy skills, how to approach clients, how to develop them, how to ask open questions, how to develop the relationship, and how to then present, most convincingly, the program suggestions that the students have come up with. And we do an implementation process as part of that, suggesting to the client, to the customer, how they can do that. The undergraduates select one of the 7 levers to focus on and developing a program to increase that. The postgraduates work on all 7 of those levers at a far deeper level. We like to think of the entrepreneurship capstone as an entrepreneurship capstone, unofficially. We're not allowed to promote it as an official capstone, but if we have a look at the business development clinic and map that over the 7 levers framework, we can see a range of units right across the business school that can be drawn on to make the students more effective in developing the framework proposal for the live case study, or we prefer to call it the client business. So in conclusion, we've discovered a methodology for sourcing client companies. We're working together with the Small Business Association of Australia. We sponsored that organisation, and we are delivering a sequence of webinars based on the 7 levers framework. And at each of those webinars that are run for the SBAA members, they're run online, of course, but when we run those, the clients get the opportunity to see how the 7 levers may work for them, and we offer them the opportunity of joining us in the Business Development Clinic to have a team of Deakin Business School students work on their company with that full use of the methodology that's been introduced. For the postgrads, we looked for the postgrad groups to approach their employers. We do have a reserve of some businesses can step up if we're in the unfortunate position of a postgrad group being unable to have one of their employers work on the program with them. But it's another way of sourcing a regular flow of live case studies, which seems to be the biggest issue for most of programs using live case studies. We've discovered a gap in the literature for these sorts of work integrated learning, experiential learning programs, particularly for use in entrepreneurship study. And that gap really is around the impact on businesses. So we've found a lot of data on undergraduates and how they perceive the course and what they get out of it. and it's been very, very positive. Students anecdotally are very happy with their experience. We showed one of those examples earlier on in the presentation. So we're going to be looking at businesses now over 5 years, the numbers of businesses who've worked through the program with us, and we're researching the impact on them of being involved with the Business Development Clinic at Deakin Business School and our students. And that's going to be the focus of the paper that we're working on now. So look out for it. We'll be publishing most likely in the Work Integrated Learning Journal, International Work Integrated Learning Journal, but we'll keep you advised of where the study that we're producing is published. We'd also like to welcome international partners. A lot of these presentations, when we do them at conferences, find a lot of interest from universities, business schools around the world. We're very happy to discuss with any partner university around the world, any partner business school, the possibility or the benefits of bringing together our students with your students, together online, working with Australian businesses, and perhaps similarly a reciprocal arrangement working with businesses in your home country. So the final word before we wrap it all up, I'd like you to imagine there are two similar soon-to-be graduates, business graduates, being asked about their industry experience at a job interview. Now the first student is able to say, and I'm sure we've all seen that in a resume, for students who graduate and are looking to start their careers. But what if we have a student going through the Business Development Clinic? What are they able to say, what are they able to present that makes them stand out, that adds more value to their application? So the student who's gone through the Business Development Clinic is able to say they led a consulting team for a startup business looking to rapidly build profitability. Using a unique framework, my team utilised primary and secondary data sources to develop and present a strategic plan to drive profit in 7 easy steps. It was implemented by the business, who achieved 100% growth in profit.